In Chapter 4, we think more about the big picture of ecosystems. We'll be using this image of a bee visiting a flower, a carrot, a puddle, and a bear paddling a boat to illustrate the important concept that healthy ecosystems provide us with food, clothes, and fun. These are called ecosystem services. In Lesson 14, students start by looking for signs of decomposition in their worm farms, and they discuss their findings. Is there evidence that the soil in the worm farm is getting healthier? After a brief discussion, students test the soil from their worm farm and see how it's changed. And then it's time to find a new home for our worms to ensure their long-term safety. They can live for a couple of years. Then we shift directions and ask, how do natural ecosystems benefit people? After an initial discussion, we assign teams of students to present a poster about different ways ecosystems help us. The Ecosystem Services Jigsaw handout lays out the project and scaffolds their work. In the next lesson, students finish their Ecosystem Services posters. Then, teams split up into new groups. Each one includes one expert from each of the ecosystem service categories, and each student in the group then shares their findings with the group, and the listening students take notes. We wrap up with a whole class discussion of all the different ways that ecosystems benefit people. Lesson 16 focuses on the question, what is biodiversity? Students participate in the Ecosystem Biodiversity presentation, where they learn that the term biodiversity describes the variety of organisms in an ecosystem. We then have a kinesthetic model of a forest, where each student plays the role of a tree. The class models a disease by having trees sit down if their particular species is affected by that disease, like a cedar fungus killing cedar trees, or pine bark beetles killing pine trees. In one round, the forest has many different types of trees. But in the second round, all trees are the same type, and a single disease wipes out the entire forest. After a brief discussion, students do a scientist spotlight to learn about one particular scientist that's been working to restore the biodiversity in ecosystems. In the exit ticket, students answer the question, does biodiversity protect ecosystem services? And they respond using a claim, evidence, reasoning format. In the next lesson, students make the final analysis of their bad soil experiments. Each team is going to make a brief presentation to share their investigation and their findings. The rest of the class will take notes on the soil factor tested, how they tested it, and what their results were. Students that don't want to take their plants home should discuss what to do with them next, hopefully composting them at home or school. Next, it's time to revisit the soil unit roadmap, looking for ecosystem services such as water filtration, matter cycling and decomposition, and flood protection. Finally, students meet Monique Warren, an environmental engineer at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory who's working to improve soil and ecosystems in real life. Lesson 18 is a chance to review our discoveries. Post the 7 graffiti STEM posters around the room, and students are going to write as many things down as they can for each one of these topics. Students rotate to a new poster every 2 to 3 minutes. Once all the teams have visited every poster, we lead a whole class discussion highlighting what people wrote on the posters. Students have now created a body of knowledge about soil, which is going to be valuable as they begin the culminating experience in the next class period. But first, we test that body of knowledge out with the unit concept checkpoint number 2. Our students are now ready for that culminating experience where they can meet the unit challenge. And that's up next.